Hi, my name is Cousineau, and I'd like to spend the next few minutes with you sharing some thoughts about personal motivation. So let's start with a definition. What is personal motivation? Well, it's a developed attitude. It is a way of life. It is a thought pattern or a habit of thoughts, positive thoughts. And some people haven't yet realized that we're not born with it. It is something that we must work on. It's something that we have to develop. So let's start with a story of the importance of goal setting, as it will help us to put things into perspective. A young fellow by the name of John Goddard, when he was yet still a teenager, his mother suggested that he write down a list of things he might want to do in his lifetime. So he chose things like to learn to type 50 words a minute, to become an Eagle Scout, to learn jiu-jitsu. He also had some more difficult things like to milk a rattlesnake, to read the entire encyclopedia, and to make a parachute jump. And then some things that to the average person might appear totally impossible, like to climb Mount Everest, to visit every country in the world, and to go to the moon. Now, the amazing part of this story is that at the age of 47, John Goddard has accomplished 103 items on his original list of 127 items. And he said what motivated him to take action was when he kept hearing elderly people say, "I wish I would have done this or I would have done that when I was younger." And he figured that to have a blueprint of what he wanted to do was most important. Another thing that we need to consider is a study that was made out of the Harvard University, where in 1953, a group of researchers asked the graduating class how many of them had written goals for the next 5 years. Only 3% of the population of the graduates raised their hands. Now, 20 years later, those researchers found the people who were still alive, and here's what they found. They found that the 3% who had their written goals had for the most part, attained management level positions in their careers. They had fewer incidences of drug and alcohol abuse. They had fewer incidences of divorce. And very importantly, the 3% group had accumulated more wealth, more assets than the 97% combined. So very important that we realize just what goal setting can do for us. So some people say, I don't know how to set goals. I don't know where to start. Well, there's something known as the SMART goal approach, where you take the word SMART and you break it down. S for specific, M for measurable, A for attainable, R for realistic, and T for time. Because you might set a goal and you need to have a time limit attached to it. That's where you start. And believe in the law of attraction. Believe that even though you've set some goals, you may not know how you're going to accomplish it, but you will attract the people, the resources, the energy to be able to fulfill those goals. That is very important. And remember that positive people will attract positive things, and people who are winners will attract positive things. People who are whiners will attract negative things. So be on the positive side instead of on the negative side. The second part to remember about developing positive motivation or personal motivation is to evaluate what you believe. Consider for a moment that by the age of 8 or 9 years old, approximately 80% of your beliefs, your values, had already been developed for you. And you need to look at who contributed to that. So your parents, your siblings, your teachers, your friends at school. Then you have the media, you have music, you might have a church community or a religious community also contributed to that. You have to ask the question of, here you are now an adult, and you need to look back and say, what was the emotional or the psychological framework or state of the people who contributed to my values? Totally different for a young person raised with 2 parents, other siblings, maybe both parents are working and contributing, and there's a positive family life. Very different from a young person who is raised in a home, single parent. Maybe the parent is suffering from mental illness, possibly some abuse happening. The values would be totally different between those people. So what we need to look at is how do our values work with us? So are your values today yours, or did they belong to somebody else? So you need to look at, for example, do you still believe in the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus and so forth? Well, if you're an adult, you may have learned a long time ago that those are not things that you value anymore. But the things that were important to us as young people, as children, are no longer important to us, and we need to evaluate that. So now in your adulthood, try to answer the question, do the values, the beliefs that you hold, help you to move forward, or are they holding you back? And it's been said that we should evaluate twice in our life, our values and our beliefs. The first time in our early 20s, when we're perhaps on our own and able to make decisions on our own at this point and make our personal decisions. That's the first time we should evaluate, what do I believe? Secondly, we need to evaluate our beliefs whenever we are at a crossroads with something else. So maybe we are confronted with something that's happening and we need to look at, wow, I believe this, why do I believe this? And does this help the situation or not? So that was the second one. The third part that we need to remember in developing personal motivation is to exclude the negatives in our lives. There are many people who will spend hours listening to the negative news on TV, reading negative news in the newspaper, and participating in the negative gossip around the water cooler when they go to work in the morning. And then they say, boy, it's really hard to be positive these days. Remember back when computers first became popular, there was a statement that said GIGO, which stands for garbage in, garbage out. So our brain works in the same way. Whatever we feed into it, whatever we put into it, that's what we can expect to bring out. Wayne Dyer says, what you think about becomes your reality. Very important that we remember that. The late Jim Rohn also looked at our associations, and he said we need to ask these questions about the people that we spend a lot of time with. The people who I spend time with, what do they have me talking about? What do they have me listening to? What do they have me reading, if anything? What do they have me thinking? What do they have me, or how do they have me feeling? And these are very important questions, but the last question was the most important one. And that's the one where he says, is all of this okay with me? So these are what people are making me feel. Am I okay with all of that? Or do I need to start to put some distance? Some of the people that we hang around with may be toxic for us. And in the same way that you wouldn't play with the liquid that's in a battery because it's toxic, you shouldn't be playing with some of the friends that you, or some of the acquaintances that you have. So there you have it. 3 factors that will help you to develop personal motivation. Set some goals, evaluate what you believe, and exclude the negatives in your life. My name is Cousineau. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. Have an awesome day.